Hello, freaks, and welcome to Radical Research. This is a love letter. Here's what the Radical Research listener is going to get tonight for a strong 90 minutes.
Welcome.
Let me introduce that thing, and we'll look at the carnage and try to take it apart even more. That was Necrobestiality from the Bride of Insect album, 1990. A Wild Rags album. That'll be notable.
Naturally. At
some point in this discussion. Great album cover by guitarist Phil Hampson. We'll talk about him more later too. But let's just talk about Necrobestiality and what we're dealing with here.
I think that we are dealing with one of the most misunderstood death metal bands ever. That's what I think we're dealing with.
Can I already draw a line in the sand and say, are they really death metal? On first blush, yeah. You know, that first listen to Necrobestiality. Yeah. Right. But then I think you can make the argument that no, or that they're like a lot more, right?
Sure.
I don't think they're as limited as that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
What's the closest musical family? Grindcore or death metal? Yeah, you know, no doubt about that. But what do you hear musically? Like, because that song, like a lot of theirs, but that song especially has a lot of the hallmarks of what makes this band so great.
It does, but it has a purpose, a compositional purpose that I feel like people tend to miss in Nuclear Death. I think you hear like some very deliberate compositional devices. And I think people think about Nuclear Death as just purely chaotic, random, talentless nonsense. And I think that's super far from the point.
Yeah, and speaking to your point about the musicality or the thoughtfulness of the composition, like they're an emotional band. And that seems weird too. You look at the artwork, you look at the lyrics, you listen to the music. I get a lot of emotion out of that. Yeah. I always have. And you can't say that about even some of the best, like colder, just structural, architectural death metal. Right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like Nuclear Death has this component of like real pain, real fear, the unimaginable happening and being relayed both lyrically and musically. Like the music part of this is huge. And so is Lori Bravo's vocals, the bassist.
I think that it's very personal music. It's the vision of like a few, like Lori Bravo and Phil Hampson, like sort of their worst nightmares. But, you know, a lot of like death metal and black metal seems sort of cartoonish and abstract. Nuclear Death feels, you said emotional, but yeah, it feels very honest and sincere to me. It's like, it's very believable personal horror.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to see kind of where they started, simply because I'm of the opinion, I don't know if you agree, but I don't think they ever really found themselves until the album. I think the demos are good. There's 3 of them, 86, 87, 88. That's 1986, 1987
for you youngins out there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're good. And we'll hear a progression of their sound, you know, when they finally kind of peak at Bride of Insect in terms of like defining what this band's all about. So these are 2 songs from 1986's Wake Me When I'm Dead, kind of a teenagey thrash demo title, but as you'll hear, it's a little bit beyond that. And a song from their 1987 demo, Welcome to the Minds of the Morbid. This is nuclear fucking death.
I was free, I mean 5 feet under me. When you'll see, you look at me. I mean try, but you stay.
We heard Shrieking Terror in the Third Antichrist, early works of Nuclear Death, natives to Phoenix, Arizona. They are still fairly embryonic at this stage, but and Laurie develops more of a singular personality as the band evolves. But I hear some really extravagant thrash vocals in this. I hear Keith Dean. I hear.
Oh, wow. Okay. For anybody that doesn't know Keith Dean from Holy Terror, there's going to be somebody out there that doesn't know that. So,
guys, if you don't know Holy Terror, get to know Holy Terror. 2 albums, one of the greatest metal bands ever, right?
Those albums keep giving,
dude. Completely, 2 of the greatest metal albums ever.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so Keith Dean is not your typical thrash vocalist, and if you're unfamiliar with Holy Terror, they're not your typical thrash band. And Keith Dean, like Holy Terror, has an approach that is full of personality and nuance and sophistication. And Keith Dean very often veers into clean singing that is more in line with, I guess, what you would call speed metal or the heaviest kind of traditional metal.
Yeah, he does get there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he, like, really, as a vocalist, he would be capable of carrying the weight of a traditional metal record on his shoulders, I feel like. Whereas a lot of thrash metal vocalists are sort of limited in their abilities. You don't really have to have a lot of traditional singing capability to be a convincing thrash metal vocalist.
Well, none of them, very few of them have the dimension of Keith Dean. I would almost argue none of them. I can't think of one
He's,
that's
I mean,
better.
I would say he's my favorite thrash metal vocalist. God rest his soul, man. Keith Dean is a crown on the head of thrash metal.
Now, let's get to Lori Bravo. Do you feel that she emulates him in personality stakes?
Yeah, I do. And you hear this, you won't hear it later. She evolves out of this. But here, I think we can clearly get that sort of personality from her. I would say that she is charismatic on a level with Keith Dean.
Yeah, very cool. Real quick, I wanted to say that, like, I think the earliest demo, Wake Me When I'm Dead, has a lot of like Brazilian thrash and especially German thrash. I feel like it's kind of Pleasure to Kill taken to its very limits,
right?
In terms of the ferocity and the audacity of it, and everything good about that sound, that very era of
Totally. And Brazil's a great call too. You talk about ferocity and audacity. You talk about musicians making the most of very, very little. It's like, think about Brazilian thrash bands from early Sepultura, Volcano, whatever, Sarcophago. You're talking about bands that literally are relying solely on the strength of their personalities.
It's one-dimensional in a good way, sort of the way just really great rock or really great punk hits the sort of that deepest chord. So as you mentioned, Lori changes and so does the band's sound. They're still evolving. The closest they get to what I consider, the real Nuclear Death, which would last from 1992, in my opinion, that won't be popular, but till 2000. They're just kind of getting there. And they get the closest with 1988's Vultures Feeding. We're going to listen to that song, Vultures Feeding, all 86 seconds of it. Okay, let's play the 3 adjective game. I'm going to throw 3 out, okay?
Okay.
Heinous, vile, fucked.
Humiliating, feral, illegal.
Excellent, man. Yeah, there you go. We have more, but just amazing stuff. I think we should just get right into Bride of Insect, the first album, then talk about Phil Hampson, the guitarist, and at this point, the writer's unique condition.
I think that's going to give some insight into the nuclear death problem, enigma,
Precisely.
whatever nuclear death is. Yeah,
precisely. Again, yes. So we're going to do that. We're going to do Fetal Lament, Homesick, and the Misshapen Horror from 1990's Bride of Insect. There's no doubt that at one point there in Fetal Lament Homesick, they start burning there near the end. And it's just the craziest fucking death metal, grindcore, sick, morbid, mad, inhuman metal experience you can have.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you don't really know where chaos and control begin and end.
Yeah.
You know, like that's one of the sort of the enduring charms of nuclear death is that it's a pretty permeable line. I mean, I remember the first time I heard them, I thought it was improvisation.
Sure.
But over time, you sort of start to suss out those more, deliberate strategies. Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, depth and nuance to this band.
Yeah, I think like when I said emotional, like if you listen to the Misshapen Horror, the very last snippet there, where she's screaming caveat the second time, and then she's just like feeling it, and it's a kind of thing that like if they had a producer, God forbid, he'd take that out, like because it's a moment of like this inspiration, unscripted, and she's just feeling it so hard. These vocals, man, this is the Lori Bravo show. She's really incredible. I mean, if I had to say, I've been asked like, oh, what's your favorite death metal vocalist? I don't fucking know. There are several, but I think Lori Bravo is probably my number one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said in the beginning, I don't consider them fully death metal. We'll get to that too, but like, yeah, she's my favorite.
I like it. I respect that.
Yeah, I have to just, I think I've known that for a while, but I'm just declaring it publicly now.
I'm gonna say Martin Van Drunen,
yeah,
John Tardy, Michael Ockerfeldt, circa like 98, 99.
Chuck Schuldiner, 1987, 1991.
Chuck's always great. Yeah.
Great choices. I there's something about Lori, though, where
I worship her. You know that.
Yeah, I know you do. I want listeners to focus on sort of why that would be, that we're so excited about her still. She gets better and better for me every year. We've talked about her a good bit. Bass and vocals, the other driving force in nuclear death. Joel Whitfield was on drums at this point from their demo until the Bride of Insect album, which we just sampled from.
A really quirky drummer too.
Yeah, I mean, like every now and then, just when you think he's just fucking slapping it and doing it quite rapidly and fast, like he comes up with almost like a snare fill that's like Buddy Rich altered. It's just,
Right.
Chris Reifert would do that kind of stuff too.
Chris Reifert's one of, I think, death metal's most musical drummers.
People, listen to Battery Acid Enema from Acts of the Unspeakable. That snare work, I am not kidding. You'll know what I mean.
Chris Reifert is like basically he's like a death metal drummer that's never heard death metal. He's only like been raised on like Black Sabbath and he got thrown into death metal. It's the same sort of thing. Like it's just like weirdly musical approach to death metal drumming. It's like figure it out.
I think all the people in Nuclear Death, Laurie, Joel, and Phil at this point, you could tell they were probably listening pretty broadly, even though their music at this point is quite focused.
Yeah, for sure.
Your one basic thing that's awesome in its layers. But yeah, Phil Hampson, let's get to him and then we'll carry on. But he told Laceration.
You mean we'll carry on?
Oh, wow.
Oh, good
one.
Yeah.
That's the second carry-on pun I have made without knowing it, and you bring it to my attention on an episode. That happened 20 episodes ago. I can't remember which one it was. But
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said carry on, and you said or carry, and we were talking something about Nuclear Death. It wasn't the 0.5 that we did. On
okay, all right.
Anyway, Phil Hampson told Laceration Zine at the time. And this is the guitarist. This is the driving force right now. He does the artwork. He writes the lyrics and he writes the music. Plays the guitar that you've just heard, which is pretty much an atonal mess on purpose. But here's why. Because this is the quote. I'm pretty much tone deaf, so I hear things differently. I hear the music in my head and I transcribe it to the guitar. I incorporate as many off chords as possible in our music. It adds a morbid touch. I mean... That's a great quote, right?
Oh, yeah. A morbid touch.
Yeah. He's now doing music as a thing called Feral Viscera, which is a song on Bride of Insect, but he's making music now that I think Nuclear Death fans should check out. That's all I'll say about it. We've mentioned that Laurie's vocals drive this machine. They're the focal point for me. You can hear her kind of a controlled vibrato with some of her cries that she'll do in this era. Right. And that's sort of interesting. And I think maybe the reason we can even bring up Keith Dean now is she did go outside the norm and surprise you every now and then, which is great.
Right. Yep.
And all the genuine pain she's unloading. Let's listen. Let's get into Green Flies. The thing you said about the fine line between chaos and control. It happens there. It happens throughout this band's sound. This is kind of what they're about. But we failed to mention Voivod's Roar, and I think that's one of those albums that teeters on that line as well.
Yep.
Yet I think at this point, Nuclear Death is kind of owning something just a little more confident, because we love Roar, we love Voivod. I mean, duh, you know. But
have we mentioned them before?
We not enough.
Yeah,
not enough.
So yeah. Anyway, they're a little band out of Quebec. You might like them. Check them out.
Yeah, check them out.
Yeah.
And you sound like Dan Aykroyd right there. But so Voivod's Roar, that doesn't own the way this does, and that's not a diss on Voivod or Roar. We love them. We've already said this many times on this podcast. But you know, they would find this kind of thing on the next album, and I think Nuclear Death kind of finds it here,
right,
where this is their art. This is now effortless. This bleeds from, you know, the membership, and we get something like Green Flies. And I want to talk about their textural variety as well. Like the snare is always so prominent in this band.
Yeah.
The drums are even more cacophonous than we've heard. The guitar is this indistinguishable blur, basically, versus, you know, the more comprehensible sound of the demos, more traditional sound, I guess. And Laurie's bass and vocals, they're just so fucking left field and out there and blasted to shit. That I think even texturally this band is interesting, and Carrion for Worm is definitely their most bass heavy and thick. Right.
I remember in the late 90s thinking that no band could approach the chaos of Cataclysm, and particularly Sylvain Hood, one of the most accomplished death metal vocalists ever, in my opinion.
He's a top 3 for me.
Yeah, he's way up there. Like when I listen to Carrion for Worm, Sylvain Hood is like the filet mignon to Laurie Bravo's ribeye. You know what I mean? It's like Laurie Bravo is so out of control on this shit, but yet so in control. I mean, it literally sounds like someone possessed of something.
Yeah, no, totally, and feeling it, and I think if you read the lyrics to anything that they ever do, it becomes a little more questionable. Like, did these people go through really bad torture when they were children?
I'm not even entirely sure that, and you may take issue with this, but like, I don't know that I would recommend the lyrics for everyone. This is some of the most chillingly depicted, like, metal lyrics ever. I mean, I remember reading I remember the first time that I heard and read the lyrics to Days of the Week. I was unsettled in a way that like almost no metal unsettles me.
Yeah,
it's yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't know what happened or what they've been through, but like, it's some pretty disturbing shit.
Yeah. I debated on whether to recite any of them, and maybe we still will. But for the most part, I was going to leave that alone and leave that to the listener, either people who are familiar with them and just want to revisit, people who know exactly what we're talking about right now, or people who might discover them through this. And I know this is a limited audience for a band like Nuclear Death. But yeah, I mean, do read the lyrics. Do give a lot of attention to them, because they are absolutely part of the experience. This is the Wild Rags era of the band. They released Bride of Insect, they released Carrion for Worm, and they released the next EP. Wild Rags, we got to talk about that a little bit here, because this fit the Wild Rags ethic, which was usually
zero budget,
really, I mean, questionably good, sometimes accidentally amazing artwork and music. You know, we love Hell Witch's first album. That's a masterpiece.
Yep.
Probably the most accomplished thing on that label.
No question.
Well, I do want to say, you know, Nuclear Death, though. This is
you mean like in accomplished in like a conventional way?
A conventional musical way, yes.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I think Nuclear Death takes everybody, especially album covers. Come on, that Syzygial Miscreancy album cover is terrible. Anyway, we
pretty
digress
bad.
once
Right.
again. But no, I think that they fit the ethic of Wild Rags, which was a charmingly low budget operation, kind of similar to New Renaissance. You didn't get a ton off of either label that was amazing, but the stuff you did get that was amazing, it's remarkable. You know.
Yep.
So we'll leave it at that. You know, I think I read fanzine reviews or some just nasty comments about people who hated Nuclear Death at this time, because there were a lot of people that just did not get this band, and that included a lot of teenage death metal enthusiasts. You know what I mean? They did not.
And most of my friends.
Unclear Death. You know, just reverse U and N, and you get this Unclear Death, because they were really morbidly unclear, obtuse, atonal music.
They're one of those bands that I feel like. And I'm always sort of put off by like people trying to justify metal records. Mm-hmm. Like people going, oh, it reminds me of Webern, or it's like, oh, Varese made a metal record, which I think is bullshit. It's like you're just trying to find a way to make yourself feel good about listening to metal. And you either do or you don't. I feel like Nuclear Death is one of those bands that is so oblique that someone could use that as a defense. Like, oh, man, this is so avant-garde, because it really kind of is.
That's an interesting subject and point. I guess we'll talk about it. I hadn't thought about that in my notes, but it's something I have thought about them all along. Because the first time I heard them, it was 90 or 91, early 91. It was Bride of Insect. And I sat down with it. I just bought it on a lark. I was loving some of the Wild Rag stuff. It looked awesome. I love Phil Hampson's art. I bought it. I sat down with it. And I realized instantly through the first listen, which was a deep one, one where you just sat and listened, what we still do today. But it felt a lot different than any other death metal experience I'd had to that point. Even from listening to like early Death and Possessed from back in the day, it did something different and new. And I eventually, over the years, realized that was kind of this avant-garde feeling, that they were just doing this discordant gray haze in a way that just happened to be metal. Right. I mean,
right. Yeah. You're using the devices of metal to express themselves.
They're a similar kind of wall as Harsh Noise. They're a similar kind of texture as Death Ambient in a way, in terms of just being this fluctuating, interesting, hopefully, single line, this linear thing, right?
And I think I may have even mentioned this the last time we talked, but I got into Nuclear Death much later. It was 2001, and I was leaving an Opeth show in Atlanta. And do you remember Deathgasm?
Yeah, the record label.
Yeah. So Deathgasm had a pickup truck full of death metal in the parking lot. And naturally, I had to check out what they were hawking. And so I ended up getting Bride of Insect. They out of this, and so it was like, I think it was like, it's probably midnight, 1 o'clock, and Tim and I were driving back to Statesboro, so it's a 4-hour drive. So we were going to get home like, around sunrise or whatever, and remember throwing on Bride of Insect in sort of a delirious state anyway, and I had no idea what to make of it. And I was pretty well heeled in experimental music by this point, but like it mystified me.
Yeah. I think they sit to the left. I think they sit to the left of death metal that we love. I think they sit to the left of the grindcore that we love. I think they sit to the left of the experimental noise we love.
Being a death metal fan, being a grindcore fan does not prepare you in any kind of reasonable way to hear Nuclear Death.
This is the beauty of them. Here's the thing too. They still scare the shit out of me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's horrifying music.
This is not a feeling I get with, I love Left Hand Path, let me tell you, and it can take me deep. Okay, I'm not going to knock this album. I will say impact is always going to be less, because with that album, the first time you heard that guitar sound, it just was so novel and incredible. And I feel like with Nuclear Death, there's just more to that sound where I'm always surprised, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does.
But they're just more surprising still. I'm still trying to unlock the code here. This is Vampirism from Carrion for Worm. This actually features background vocals by Chris Reifert from Autopsy. You better know who he is.
And yeah, Entombed wouldn't exist without Chris Reifert.
We will talk early 90s death metal upon our return.
Let us.
I think we discussed why I might think that this band is, let's just say, more than death metal. A lot more can't be categorized quite as easily.
No.
So I don't want to talk about that too much, but like, yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that's the only family they could find were death metal bands, a little bit of grind. Chris Reifert appears on there. We're going to get into another EP before I think they do move away from death a little bit.
Yeah. At this point, death metal was becoming kind of a thing.
Right.
Like death metal was starting to define itself, and it was starting to, I think, narrow its devices and sort of codify.
It was the golden age of death metal.
Yeah, yeah. But death metal was starting to sort of recognize itself too. You know what I mean? Like It was no longer an infant. It was like, oh, I see myself in the mirror, and this is what I am. And to your point about their sort of innate outsideness. So like Nuclear Death never looked like any other death metal. And so like I think that was probably one of the challenges that it faced as a quote unquote death metal band. Because you're right, they really didn't have anywhere else to go, and death metal was the only harbor for them, but I don't think they were ever really accepted there either. And I think that it's appropriate that Chris Reifert would sort of offer his endorsement, because another guy that is who is, you know, one of the architects of death metal, really, but like still for his entire career had a very different kind of personal approach to that art form.
Yeah, well said, man. And it reminds me of something that this guy Mick Toscan said. Michel Toscan, his nickname was Mick. He wrote in the 5 Years of Death booklet, which is this awesome vinyl box set that the Crypt put out about 5 years ago, maybe about 7 years ago. Ted Tringo, thumbs up, man. But he correctly summarized Nuclear Death thusly, and this is Mick Toscan talking, the guy who wrote this booklet, first page in the booklet. In math, they would be called outliers, data anomalies that don't fit any logic or trend. I mean, isn't that right?
That's awesome. Great? Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect analog, yep.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you're saying, just coming from a different angle. But it's a great point. One really interesting thing, and this is going to make people think I'm a freak if they haven't already thought so, but I used to like to take Nuclear Death into the Iowa City Mall and have it on my very first sort of like some, you know, portable CD player or something.
This literally sounds like the file for a serial killer. Like Iowa, weird death metal mall. You know, creepy guy.
You know it. But here's the thing: like I found myself having, you know, listening to them while I had to do something there. Wasn't often in the mall, but I found that taking Nuclear Death to these different and kind of idiosyncratic environments was amazing. I mean, in a way that like, again, not to bag on Entombed or Early Death, but in a way that like, these people have no idea what's happening in my head right now. You know what I mean? Like it becomes very personal and reactive. So I have done this. I actually walked by the public pool in this place that my wife and I visit in Wilmington often. like just this last weekend, kind of preparation for the show. But I walked by the pool. Nobody's in it because it's a little cold here. But it was just this sunny, bright, tropical environment, and I'm listening to For Our Dead. You know,
yeah, as one must.
So I've just found I like to take them in these unusual environments, and it works every time. Like they always.
I mean, think about where they come from. They're from Phoenix. It's
right.
fucking sunny like 340 days out of the year. You know, It's hot. It's like this is not where one would think, death metal would emanate from. But I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about Florida. But somehow Phoenix is a more hostile environment to me. Like Florida does get like storms and some degree of gloom. Like Phoenix is just, it's like where people retire.
Yeah, there you go. Let's jump to the For Our Dead EP, the cassette release. It was also a 7-inch from early 1992. This is their final thing with guitarist Phil Hampson and Wild Rags. This is a significant thing in their history. So we're going to do 2 songs, Days of the Week and The Church of Evil Minds of Splatter Day Saints.
And we recommend that you seek out the lyrics to both of these if you're feeling strong of stomach.
Especially Days of the Week. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get back. Not in any great detail, but we'll have to discuss Days.
I think we have to. Yeah.
This is the entire Days of the Week and a little bit of Church of Evil Minds of Splatter Day Saints.
when you and I did our No Means No episode, I remember you bringing up a point about the lyrics for the title track of Dance of the Headless Bourgeoisie. Yeah, and you were saying that you've talked to parents that had a hard time digesting that.
Yes.
As the father of a little girl, I can tell you that the lyrics on Days of the Week are possibly the most uncomfortable lyrics I have ever encountered in rock or metal.
Can I speak to that a second? Like,
Sure.
I want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you believe that it's because the form of the poem, the way it's delivered on the lyric sheet, is so poetic that it makes it scarier than just your typical like rhyme at the end of each line?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Bullshit, corpse grinder, death metal lyric.
Yeah. No, there's nothing cartoonish about it. And as you read it, if you read it for the first time, you don't exactly know what you're going to be getting at the end of it. You know what I mean? It starts out rather peacefully.
Yep.
It doesn't end peacefully. You know, I was always kind of like sticking by those lyrics, but you know, as a dad now, they take on a really very profound dimension of terror.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know really what to say about them. I mean, I would suggest that everybody, if you're into this episode and you really want to know what Nuclear Death's about, read them, because it's very potent shit.
It is. And it's funny that they would be able to survive Phil Hampson. I guess maybe we'll talk about that with the next EP.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much here, but this is what happens. This is the last Phil Hampson album. Great lyricist. Certainly unorthodox in every way, as was his guitar approach. One thing I hear in For Our Dead, the whole EP and the whole 1992 period of Nuclear Death, is a bit of a peeking out of what they've been aiming at the whole time. I've joked to you that this stuff sounds to me like Vaughn trying to play Nocturnus Thresholds.
That's the best. That's the best shit ever.
But you know what I mean, because Vaughn is Vaughn.
Yes.
I don't have to explain Vaughn, but their primitive is living fuck. And then Nocturnus,
like two chord maximum.
Right, and then Nocturnus Thresholds, which is this. I think it's more ambitious than it is a success, but I love it. And it's so muddy and dark.
It's like one of the most unloving albums ever.
Exactly. So the difficulty of that, yet being off kilter, really technical. Not that Nuclear Death is technical, but Nuclear Death were surprising. They would ambush you with, unpredictable stuff.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing at this point. That's what they're strong at. And we're going to get into something that I think exemplifies Nuclear Death in the best way, and one that's, I think, eclipsed. Bride of Insect is my favorite Nuclear Death album.
Okay.
Or Nuclear Death recording. I love all this stuff we've been playing once we get into Bride of Insect, even some of the the later 80s demos. But this is All Creatures Great and Eaten is them surviving without Phil Hampson, Laurie taking over artwork, guitar, and songwriting with Steve Cowan, the drummer. We didn't mention Steve yet. Steve came in on Carrion for Worm, drummed on these last two. I think he's a better drummer. I think he's a little more musical. I think
I agree.
Yeah, and he, as we'll hear later, he morphed with the band in a very significant way when they went pretty far outside of metal. Yeah, so All Creatures Great and Eaten, that's obviously a take on the 1970s book series by James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small. It should be noted that for all their fucked upness and just uncomfortable moments that you mentioned as a father, Hunter, should be noted that I know for a fact that Laurie is a very sweet woman. She loves her animals, especially the cats.
She loves cats, and I did know that. Yeah,
right. And All Creatures Great and Eaten, the very short but officially third full length by Nuclear Death, came out originally as a cassette release on Cat's Meow Records. The cat link again. This is Laurie Bravo and Steve Cowan's Nuclear Death. This is a song from All Creatures Great and Eaten, the opener snippet from Bones of the Lip.
Yeah, and this I feel like we're like sort of receiving transmissions from this mostly unexplored like metal planet. You know what I mean?
That is fucking amazing.
But like by this point, like so much of extreme metal had been it had worked over itself. But like when I hear this, it sounds completely fresh, even now. It's like there's like basically nobody has ever mined this territory.
Yeah, this is getting into something phantasmagoric and psychedelic, I think.
Yeah.
And Laurie playing guitar, I'm sure, has a lot to do with it. Laurie writing the songs has a lot to do with it. Man, all respect to Phil Hampson, but I do like that his exit, and I don't know the story behind that. She said in an interview very callously once that we didn't need him anymore. Like, okay. This is the Joey DeMaio of Nuclear Death. So she says this, and then they go into this, and she has command of the artwork. She has command of the concept. She has command of the writing and even the guitar playing. It still has that discordant, disharmonic style that Phil had, but it's kind of more of a mush, and it's more wiry.
And you mentioned MREP. And it does. It's got
I mentioned MREP as we were listening.
Yeah. Well, okay. Sorry. As we were listening, but like it does have that like nasty ass, like aggressive, hateful noise rock kind of vibe.
Yeah, and we'll hear more of that as we move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, even the lyrics retain their bizarre quality. I think Laurie and Phil must have had some commonality in terms of how they understand the world and maybe some of their experiences. That's all I'll say about that, because that's just conjecture. But
I think you're probably on the money.
So they got even weirder and more psychedelic, not only on this short album, but on this particular song that we're going to play part of. This is from Ant Farm. This is AUNT Farm. Another great lyric read. Another great lyric read that's so worth it. Check this out. This is a bridge to where they go.
I think one of the things that keeps people from getting into Nuclear Death the way that Jeff and I have gotten into them is this outward appearance of amateurism. I have good friends who are, seasoned metal listeners, interested in the more esoteric reaches of the genre, that think that Nuclear Death are like, a Battle of the Bands band. They exist in some kind of basement.
Wow.
But I would argue, and I'm sure Jeff would as well, and I'm sure that he will, that what we just heard speaks to the opposite. I think we're talking about a band that knows exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, I think they always have. You have to remember Phil Hampson's tone deafness. I mean, that's the great chapter of the Nuclear Death book, as it were. And you have to remember a lot of things. You have to understand, and I guess it's hard to understand something so left field because it doesn't, it should fit into something that's now very accepted. Death metal. Look, let's face it, death metal has become accepted.
Oh yeah, no question.
That word, that the genre name has been on sitcoms as a joke or as a legitimate form. We know it as the latter.
Yeah, it's not outsider art anymore.
Right, but here's the thing. We've got an outsider in an outsider. Right? Death metal at its core will always be outsider. Nuclear Death was even beyond that. So I don't judge people who don't get them. I kind of get that, actually. I've just fallen in. I've bought in. I get why it's important for me to spend quite a few hours a year, all the years of my life so far, since I was 22 to now 50, with a band like Nuclear Death.
Yeah.
I listen to them more than a lot of other death metal bands. They might be my favorite. It's weird to say, though, because that's judging the outsiders, right?
Yeah.
I can't. Nothing's better than Scream Bloody Gore. Nothing's better than Left Hand Path. I mean, these are my favorites. And so are Nuclear Death. They're just kind of there as this outsider of an outsider, I guess is what we're saying. I want to say about Creatures Great and Eaten that this is Laurie's best vocal performance, in my opinian. I'd
agree with that. Yeah.
Flat out. We can hear this on the snippets that we listen to, Bones of the Lip and Ant Farm. But I urge people to check out Art of Veins, Divine Perversion, and Dark Winter Psalm from this album. She's incredible on all of those.
Art of Veins. That's the one for me.
I wish we would have played that instead of Bones. But
well, whatever. But yeah, check it out. Hey, let's talk about the cover art.
This is Laurie Bravo's art. This is the first one that she drew. This is a smear of vibrant green, blues, and reds with a little yellow. They're collapsing on each other. It's like this burning forest of color. This is how they sound to me in this moment. Phil Hampson's stuff was on gray canvas, pencil drawings that were black. Carrion for Worm had a little color. Carrion for Worm, not his best work, but I think Bride of Insect is an amazing, amazing piece of artwork. A lot of the sort of stuff he did for the demos and some of the inner parts of booklets and whatnot, even the For Our Dead cover, great stuff. So here's Laurie's first attempt, and like I said, it's this collapsing primary colors.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's like a kind of a formless Pollock sort of canvas, but it only occupies about half of the space.
I think that's always interesting. Like, if you think about Sepultura's Beneath the Remains, where that skull is kind of down in one lower quadrant, it turns it into just like a dumb idea to, what is that saying?
Yeah, that's a great point.
What is the positioning of the art saying?
That's a great point.
Anyway, yeah, it's interesting stuff, and too bad it was only released as a cassette back then, because that's the inferior format in terms of artwork.
Yeah, it's the least good.
So until this time, to my knowledge, they had not had anything put out on compact disc. It was always vinyl or cassette. By 1996, 4 years after the For Our Dead EP and the Creatures album, we get the Planet Cachexial. I ordered this directly from the band because it was the band operation at this point. They'd left Wild Rags. This was Cat's Meow. When I got this is the first CD they had put out, and it has this cover that looks very, 70s krautrock, maybe. Okay. No writing, an indistinct picture on the front. But I also got an 8x10 booklet, which has probably Laurie's best artwork and maybe my favorite Nuclear Death artwork ever. And I think it's something we'll probably post along with the episode when we post this. But this was really intriguing. 4 years later, it's called the Planet Cachexial. It's short on lyrics. It's got some vocals, but they're sort of phonetics almost. It's more about sound.
Right.
And the music is conceived as a soundtrack to the concept. So you get it. You figure it out. You talk to me. It's fun. Let's listen to...
Yeah, I'm quite fond of this, actually.
This has gotten better for me. Now, it is a garagey recording. You wish it was maybe a little more produced, but this is also the Nuclear Death way to just be...
They're like the Manila Road of death metal.
Boombox, our material is so good and strong, our conviction and our genuine aspect is so strong, we're going to give it to you pretty naked.
I love that.
I like it. I think it works.
That like Heaven Shore kind of thing, you know? It's a triumph of resource over circumstance. You know, it's like we don't have a lot, you know, nobody's really behind us, nobody believes in this, but we know that our art and our identity are so strong that they can overcome that.
And the quality of the recording or the lack of the say produced or professional quality becomes part of the character.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is one snippet from Planet Cachexial. This is called Birthing of Slumber Blood. That listening just now just brought something to mind that I have to say. That's like Burzum trying to play oxypligates.
And like probably like 100 people on Earth know what that means. But yeah. Alf, we love you.
Yeah, man. I mean, we had them at Burzum, and then they were like, oxypligates? And then they were like, why am I listening to a Nuclear Death podcast? Like, you know, like...
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my Lord. Cachexial, as we'll hear, goes a lot of different places. There's a track on here called "O Father Death Taketh Me," which sounds like, I don't know, an early theater of tragedy.
Wow. Yeah.
And let's move on.
I hadn't thought about that band in a while. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But that would be what, for me, death ambient should sound like. And this is where Nuclear Death becomes even more fascinating, is with Planet Cachexial, where they start to go in this really arty, experimental, soundtracky direction. Still garagey, still raw, still diseased. Let's play the adjective game again. I'm going to say diseased, septic, which I have to credit you for, and phantasmagoric.
Harmful. Dismissive.
Oh, wow. You don't have to name a third one because you just won. Harmful and dismissive.
And also, let's see, solar.
Solar?
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Okay.
felt like there were parts of that where I literally felt like there were flares of the sun coming after me.
This is about the birth and rebirth of universes. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
actually
Oh
pretty
shit!
cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. If I was going to sum up Planet Cachexial, that would be it. But it's about so much more. But that's a summary. Well, with that in mind, let's listen to Into. I'll just pronounce this the way I want to pronounce it. Zyrelaya. The Encyclopedia Metallum, the Metal Archives, lists the lyrical themes for nuclear death as gore, death. That's a given.
Yeah.
Hallucinations. Good one. Nightmares. Sickness.
Yeah, that's about right.
It gets there, but not quite, as we've been saying. It's close. So what do we hear on Into Zyrelia? Like, where is nuclear death? I want to say, even before we end up at the final album, which is next, I really like where nuclear death ended up.
Oh, totally. I think it makes perfect sense. And I think it sort of gives light to our suggestion, at least, that maybe nuclear death, like, always kind of existed outside of metal. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, like, the tools of metal were the only thing available to them at that time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Their vision is bigger than that. It's just like, okay, these are the resources we have. We'll make the most of it. But I think that where we see them go eventually sort of substantiates that claim. They're like, yeah, like their vision was always bigger than just about anything. You know, it's like, it's just theirs. It's not metal. It's not rock. It's not electronic music. It's not noise. It's just nuclear death.
Really good point, man. And I really like that as a segue into the next and final album. Now, the Planet Cachexial came out 4 years after the For Our Dead and All Creatures releases. And now we have 4 years later after that, in 2000, the final Nuclear Death album. This is still Laurie Bravo and Steve Cowan.
And I think that anyone who knows this probably knows this from your... Well, it wasn't a brash bit back then. What was the thing that you and Mike G did?
We were doing shorter reviews.
Yeah, but what was that called?
In the main review section.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think it was a terrible idea because it had me marginalize some things that I really like, and it also had me reviewing some stuff that I fucking hate.
Yeah, you like made me buy an In Battle record, so thanks a fucking lot for that.
Well, one thing I'll say though is that it also was a space for me to slag on stuff that I didn't like at all. So
right.
Maybe I liked In Battle for 30 seconds. I think it's in poor taste for you to bring that up right now. As the guy that got you into nuclear death. So,
all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm not still listening to In Battle.
I certainly hope not. But I will say, so like you guys actually ran the cover art for this in that little column. Yes. And it's always had like an appeal for me. It's like a microscope petri dish kind of a thing, but like to me, it's always been part of the experience.
No, this is obviously the most different Nuclear Death album, but I defend it through and through as Nuclear Death. We get some unusual artwork from Lori. One of the panels is definitely has some blood going on. We'll just say that. The rest of it's weirder. It's different. This is the most different song they ever recorded in terms of relation to all of their other material. This is Electric Space Boy.
So here's the sad part. If this were repackaged for like the Pitchfork generation, it'd be huge. I mean, really, it's shockingly accessible, I think. Yeah. It's like, and the thing is, it's like, it is like very retro, but it also sort of feels like of its time. Like it sounds like 1984, but it feels like 2000. And I think, like, back to my original point about Lori's vocals, like, if you survey, the full landscape of like the Nuclear Death discography, you hear how awesome she is as a vocalist.
Yeah, and that melodic sensibility that she just really hit that previously is all over Electric Space Boy. I'll admit, that's a dumb title. The rest of the song I love. I think it's their pop hit, and yet retains a weird creepiness. And I think that's got to be there for Nuclear Death, and it's there in this. And her vocals are amazing on this.
I think it's a really special piece of music.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. Her vocals on this sell it. She's, as I've said, she always sells Nuclear Death. She brings this, she channels something that's really special. And I think it's hurt. I think it's pained. but I think it's valuable because I'm going to guess it's provided catharsis for her.
Yeah.
And for us, we get to enjoy that passion, I suppose.
She really is an unsung visionary.
Yeah, and as we're going to hear on the next two and final snippets of this episode, and from Harmony Drinks of Me, we're going to hear that they did get really kind of fucked again, really diseased again, really different again, but it's not in the same guise, although you recognize it from what you've heard previously with, the first 14 samples we played that were more or less, nuclear death at their deathliest. This is Sunless, and after that is The Baths.
At night is now my lover. So cold and loves he. And warm the sweetest memory. At death, come for me. So no longer His great majesty burning out. What a mood is shining and lost all our innocence gone out.
Your
So a couple things there. Suddenly some subwoofer thumping from Nuclear Death on that little bit, that last bit of the baths. And also Lori Bravo really selling it again. I think redefining herself in some ways on these two tracks, especially the baths. This is what makes Nuclear Death great, is where they ended up. And this is horror as well. This is the believable diseased thing that was going on through all this other stuff. What are your thoughts?
I think that I'm guilty of this. Like, I've had a tendency to talk about Lori Bravo as like an amazing death metal vocalist or an amazing this kind of vocalist. Lori Bravo is just an amazing vocalist, and it speaks to the power of her vision that she could lose such a partner like Phil Hampson, and somehow, like, even though the band evolved, she could sort of maintain the vision for Nuclear Death that was there at the beginning. Yeah, like there's a constancy within this band's evolution.
Sure, and I think you can hear that, though, on Bride of Insect, where she finds herself as a vocalist and becomes, at the same time, an elite metal vocalist. I think she's just incomparable. She's
amazing.
Yeah, so I think she started it there, and we end up at something like the Baths from Harmony Drinks of Me, and she's in this territory that you and I talked about as that was going on. We both had the same thought of Diamanda Galus.
Yep.
And
all right, if you compare her to Diamanda Galus, you're talking about another artist whose vision is preserved over this like wide range of stylistic explorations. It's like both of these artists are immune to genre. Like the potency of their spirit and their vision triumphs over anything, really. Doesn't matter where they work, that it's just them.
My great hope is that Lori Bravo someday will come out with like an album that is amazing. I think she's worked on stuff. I think I've seen snippets of it on Facebook, but as of yet, I don't think she's got anything. If I'm completely ignorant of that, somebody please wake me up. Wake me when I'm dead. So this is Nuclear Death. As you've clearly heard, they are nothing like the others. Investigate. Go deep. We're proud to reach the landmark episode of 50. As we've been promising, this will be a deep dive, as deep as we can make it anyway, on Celtic frosts. And I'm going to say Celtic throughout the episode, and Hunter will probably elect to say Celtic.
I will say Celtic, yes.
Okay. Do you say the Boston Celtics?
No.
Were you born in America?
Yes.
Okay, well, just saying.
Sorry to be right.
You're right. You're right, but I've just said Celtic for way too long to change. This will be on Celtic Frost's 1987 album, Into the Pandemonium.
Join us as we go into heretofore unknown depths of research, radical and otherwise. This is going to be an epic show, befitting of our 50th anniversary.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it, brother. We'll see you then.
Gentle hand caresses listlessly the contour of her breast before she sleeps.